Predictions for foundation tier for Monday for the biology paper 2, as many of you have asked me to do this, so here we go. Body temperature. So when we mean body temperature, we are looking at thermoregulators. So if you are too hot or too cold, how does your body respond in terms of shivering, sweating, the hairs laying or rising? So you should be able to explain that, which includes your blood vessels, like I've explained, if it's vasodilation or constriction. So be able to explain that. And another thing that they can ask you is diabetes. That did not come up last year. So make sure you know the difference between type 1 and type 2. We use insulin or you are taking drugs, and how you're controlling it and how does that affect you. A really key other one is kidneys. They normally tend to ask you about how the blood filters the blood. They may give you a part of Lupo Henry that I've seen quite a few times, or they may ask you about nephrons, how they work, infiltration. So know the structure. The one that always comes up is hormones. It comes up every single year, regardless of what paper you're sitting in. Human reproductive system. Really important that you are really reading this one. So in terms of the hormone, we're looking at the graphs. They normally give you a graph on the levels. They can ask you about how each one of these can be used as your contraceptive pill, what are the effects of them. So be careful, be ready to be explaining each one of them in detail and what they stand for. Directly linked to this is the menstrual cycle. Again, represented at graph format, lots of times compare and contrast and what's happening in terms of the different levels of the hormones. You got sexual and asexual reproduction. Again, compare and contrast the difference between the sexual and asexual reproduction, which then goes into meiosis. So meiosis is about haploids, half the number of chromosomes, and produces gametes, which are the sex cells, which is egg and sperm. This links to the DNA and the genome. And here you need to know your definition and structure of DNA. Double helix, made of 4 bases, ATCG with hydrogen bonding. Gene is a section of chromosome. Gene is a section of DNA. Then you go chromosome, the thread-like structures. They can ask you to draw the diagram and then the pairs and what happens. Linked to this directly is your diseases, which is cystic fibrosis that you need to know. And the other one you need to look is polylactal, where you have an extra finger or a toe. They may link it to Down syndrome and things too. So just be aware to explain these. Directly linked to this is your Punnett square. So doing the possibility of different combinations. This could be a ratio or it could be a percentage. So you go 1 in 4 or 2 in 4 and so on, or it could be 25% and so on. Same thing. To be able to draw Punnett square, remember the dominant and recessive gene. Remember to use a big letter for dominant, small for recessive. We then go on to fossils. So in terms of fossils, you need to be talking about natural selection, Darwin's theory on it, and how natural selection has selected the best genes. You can talk about resistance of bacteria. If you was to have a population linked to natural selection, then if it can get wiped out if it's got the same kind of genes and tissues, that's going to cause them to how they make population resistant, what you're going to do about it. Then you got cloning. Now cloning can be split into three. You got tissue culture, where you are growing plants to make grow them on a larger scale quite quickly. You go cutting. Again, you take in a cutting from a plant, putting in a smaller pots, and then growing into large scale. And finally, you can do an embryo transfer. And this is to do with when you take in 2 eggshells, you tend treat it with electric shock, take the nucleus out, and you put in the nucleus of what you want it to grow into. We got carbon cycle, which is the same as your chemistry as well. So here you need to be able to label the carbon cycle and the main processes that increases or decreases the carbon in the system. Rate of decay, which is also a required practical. So what happens if you decaying things? And then we got, I'm going to run out of space here. I'm going to write in here. So we got then biodiversity. So in biodiversity, you've got type of pollutions that you can discuss. You got global warming. Again, link that to your chemistry as well. Deforestation. Again, these all link up. So be willing to interlink. It's called biochemistry. So you can interlink the chemistry part of your knowledge to this as well. Finally, you got your food security. I'm going to write down here. In food security, you've got we're looking at farming methods. So they'll give you data on pesticides, insecticides, and so on. And you got biotechnology as well. Advantages and disadvantages. Now, despite all of this, the one that keeps coming up every single year in the exams is your photosynthesis and a respiration. So the biggest one that, even though may have come in paper 1, it will be back in paper 2, is photosynthesis and respiration. So make sure you go back and revise these two because they will come up.